Okay, welcome, Judith. I
Thank you, Judith.
understand you and I have had similar experiences, spiritual experiences. I'm correct in
Yes,
that, right?
yes, that's correct.
But you've had several over time. I've only had one. You've had several.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you wrote me an email. I think the first one had that you mentioned anyway had to do with saying a routine prayer at night.
hmm
Why don't you go over that? Could you?
Yes, I was saying my little basic bedtime prayer at the time. Now I lay me down to sleep, and suddenly my awareness was outside my body, and I was looking down a hallway or tunnel, dark tunnel towards a bright white light. And the words appeared in my head to move towards the light, so I did. I don't know how, but I did. And as I got closer to the light, I felt an all embracing warmth, loving acceptance. And also, I perceived that Jesus was a part of the light, although he was not the entire light and he was not separate from the light, he was a part of the light.
Yeah, and that's the way, if I understand it correctly, that many people who write about their near-death experiences, their NDEs, describe it. There's this tunnel and this light, and
Yes.
I've heard Jesus at the end. I've heard Buddha at the end. I've heard different religious characters, if you will,
Yes.
being part of it. Mine, however, I mean, there were no Jesus, Buddha, or anything else. There was just this intense sense of love. I knew I was in the presence of the Creator, and it was this world I talk about that is beyond our
hmm
senses. But let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the Jesus thing. There are people who are listening to this might
Yes.
get the impression, gee, if I don't happen to be Christian in my background, maybe I can't have one of these experiences because Jesus is a part of it or something like that. Uh, I don't think I would rather think that's a reflection of your own religious background. Somebody else may see it differently that come from, let's say, Judaism, for example, or
Yes.
Buddhism, or Hinduism, or something else. What do you think about that?
I agree with you because since that time, when I had that first experience, um, I only knew about Christianity at that time. But since then, I've explored many other spiritual traditions. And as I was exploring those traditions, I had subsequent experiences. And those subsequent experiences always appeared in whatever tradition that I was exploring at the time.
Yeah,
That's how those experiences happen. So I would agree. It's perhaps a reflection of what's inside you or me personally,
sure.
or maybe it's just the creator reaching out to us in a method that we'll understand.
Yeah, that in my experience and in my discussion with so many people on this subject, I think you probably hit the nail on the head there. It's a way of, now that you're there, now that you have somehow let go of this world of things,
hmm
the world inside our senses, within our
Yeah.
senses, it's a communication form that is best suited for you. But
hmm
the essence of it, from what I'm hearing from you as well as from others and myself, really has to do with what you described as warmth. That's the word you
hmm
used, I think.
Yes.
Expand on that some, can you?
All embracing warmth was the thing that I was what I believe I used, but basically it's just unconditional acceptance. That awareness, that light saw everything about me, and that included my ugly parts, the things that I don't want to look at about myself, the things that we all wear our masks,
Sure.
and it saw all of it and accepted all of it. It knew the backstory where all of it came from. It was just like a perfect awareness.
It's almost like all that back stuff, that ugliness, that
Yes.
easy to judge stuff, if you will,
hmm
was a non-event.
Yes.
That's my
Yeah.
words. Those are my words.
Yes.
you know, like
I
like
have said
who cares?
yes.
that's
From
that's not really you.
yes, from that experience, I've often wondered if maybe forgiveness is not something that humans need to do, because for me, from my experience, it seems like God didn't judge, and there was no need for God to forgive.
Okay.
There was no injury in the first place.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating thing because I'm gonna move on to something
Hmm.
which happens to be my own studies with A Course in Miracles and something I'm developing called optimal EFT. We
Hmm.
talk about the whole topic of forgiveness, and thank you for bringing that up because forgiveness, as I've grown to understand it, has two levels. One is what we're going to call the human level,
Hmm.
and that is I forgive you for betraying me or something like that.
Hmm.
You did me in. Shame on you. You're a bad person. I'm angry at you, etc. And
Hmm.
eventually I say, well, okay, you were having a bad day. I forgive you. Okay. Now
Yeah.
that's forgiveness on the human level, we'll call it.
Hmm.
The other level is different than that. Let me go back to this example. So
Sure.
later on, after I have forgiven you in the human sense, you betray me again. And what I do is I say, okay, Judith, that's the second time you've done that now. You did it yet again. Da 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 da. Now I'm in your face again. All right. I didn't forgive the first time because I'm keeping score. And
Yes.
that's a difference than true forgiveness. True
Yes.
forgiveness, to pick up on what I think you were talking about earlier,
Hmm.
is this non-judgmental. It never happened to begin with.
Yes.
It's like this experience we're having in these separated bodies is an illusion, a
Yes.
dream. None of it is really real. Now those are my words, but
Yes.
tell me what goes on with you on that.
No injury in the first place. Injury didn't really happen. And from that level, beyond the separateness and beyond our bodies and our separate awareness, there really is no injury and no opposition.
Yeah. Let me pick up on opposition. I know you've had another experience you wrote to me about where you talked about no opposition, but let me
Hmm.
just conclude, if we can, with that concept.
Hmm.
When you have ultimate love and there's nothing in the way of it, that is no opposition,
Hmm.
it expands in a manner that is far beyond anything we experience as humans.
Yes.
At least that was my experience. Put some
Yes,
words
I
around
agree.
that, can you?
Well, a lot of times, to me, human love and that unconditional love are two completely different things. Human love is always based on some kind of expectation or desire. And that divine love, if you want to call it that, there was no expectation. It wanted nothing from me. It only wanted to reach out and embrace me. Um,
Yeah. And that kind of love is a real challenge for us as we run around in this world within our senses. Okay, this world of separation and separate bodies,
yes.
this world is not like that world you and I were just discussing. So this no opposition thing is really fascinating to me because as we experience love in this human form,
Hmm.
we also experience lots of other emotions. There's judgments and betrayals and resentments and angers and griefs and traumas and all the stuff of this world. And that all competes in a way with ultimate love. It's also going on in there. It's in the same mix. But if that all that other resistance wasn't there, and you only had love, and it had no opposition, it expands to a level that is just way beyond anything that we are able to perceive in this world within our senses. It's metaphorically, it's like a football team on the football field trying to score, but there's no defense. There's no other team. You
Hmm.
just score, 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 and you run up scores. It's 100,000 to nothing, in the game, and it's
Yes.
so far beyond our comprehension of what love would be like with no opposition, and yet, that's what this state is like.
From my understanding, there's a profound peace there.
Yeah,
And in subsequent experiences, I always experienced the peace and the love, but I never really made the connection that there was no opposition until one day I was meditating and accessed that awareness. And when I came out of that awareness, I realized that the reason there was so much peace there was because there was no opposition.
Yeah.
In oneness, there is no opposition. There's no other. There's only this.
Yeah. Only this.
Hmm.
Fascinating. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating that that world exists out there. Now, let me ask you just one other kind of final
Sure.
thing here. Well, let me give you my take on it first, and then you
Sure.
respond to this with an agreement, lack of it, or something
Okay.
else, whatever. When I was in that state, my own spiritual experience, I realized at that moment that that state was the real world. That
Oh,
this separated state, this stuff running around in separate bodies, humans that compete with each other and all this other stuff,
mhm.
wasn't real. It was like it was an illusion, like it was a dream. It's like it was this, it's a mistake or something like that. And that what we call reality within our separated selves isn't reality at all. The real reality is this only love out there, and our challenge here is to get back there somehow. And so that's what I want to have you respond to.
Well, what occurs to me is reality is kind of like an iceberg. Physical reality is kind of like an iceberg. There's a 30% of an iceberg that appears above the water, and then there's everything else that's below the water that is not necessarily immediately apparent to people. And I think that awareness we've been talking about is absolute truth and absolute reality. On that level, there is no disagreement.
Yeah,
And we're only seeing part of the story. If we had a complete view of all of reality, there would be no disagreement because there's only oneness.
yeah, and there would be no separate bodies.
Yes, that's
There
correct.
would be no buildings and mountains and oceans. There would be no need for these things because we're in
Hmm.
this state of constant love, which is what we're searching for as individuals anyway. We're always looking for love.
Yes.
Okay,
A sense of connection.
we're looking for human love, which is a poor comparison to the ultimate love.
I say it's a pale imitation.
Yeah, a pale imitation. Very good. Okay, all right, Judith. I thank you so much for sharing all that with us. There are going to be a lot of people who see this. I hope their eyes are going to be a little open to this and be motivated to carry further into this sort of exploration. So,
It
my,
was my pleasure. Thank you.
all right, my gratitude.